Hi, everyone. I'm Steve Ferreira. You're watching the Cloud Therapist channel.
Hello and welcome to the Cloud Therapist Shorts. I'm Richard Simon. This video is the final in a three-part series of short talks on value stream management. Please do check out the other parts if you haven't already. They're also on the Cloud Therapist channel. I'd like to welcome back my guest for this final part, Steve Pereira, also known as the value stream guy. Steve is a board advisor of the Value Stream Management Consortium, founder of Visible Value Stream Consulting, and he also runs Toronto's DevOps community since 2011. And he's been in tech for over 20 years, so nearly as long as I have been in tech, Steve, almost. Anyway, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate you coming back on again for this, Steve. I think we've really found the part one, part two really useful. So we're kind of just going to continue our discussion. And the focus for this final part is on value stream management and kind of success stories and kind of some real life customer situations. I think it's always useful to kind of put things like that into context so people kind of appreciate how it's worked out for other folks as well. So yeah, so please go ahead and kind of give us a couple of those examples.
Sure. So the first one that comes to mind, I think, is a pretty common scenario where you're a leader in, let's say, a technical role. You might be new to the role, or just moving up or into a different perspective of the organization. Let's say, you have to work with a new team. Maybe you're tasked with a specific challenge, and you kind of have to understand your surroundings. You have to understand what you have to work with, understand the context of where to focus, and how to bring everybody that you're now working with onto the same page and get everybody aligned. And I think value stream mapping is a fantastic practice for that use case. So let's say you're brand new to an organization and you roughly know that they've been struggling with software development. The business expects them to go faster. They've got a lot of technical debt to deal with, and they probably have a lot of process debt. There's a lot of people are stuck in a lot of meetings. Things seem to take way longer than they should. And so value stream mapping can really help you understand what is going on from a workflow perspective, which I think is really important. And we don't often look at this. We just sort of jump in and try to power our way through things without really understanding whether we're sawing with a dull saw or we're even sawing the right tree. And so taking a step back and kind of surveying, the real work that's going on and where most of the effort should be focused is an extremely valuable practice. And value stream management really gives you the ability to do that. And the first step would be to map the value stream with stakeholders that are across the value stream. So maybe you're bringing in the product owner on this team, maybe you're bringing in a Scrum Master, a lead developer, somebody from QA, maybe if you've got somebody from operations or release management, and if you're lucky, you've got someone from customer success as well. And you can sort of bring everybody in together and map out what does it take to get a feature out to a customer, right? Let's break down each of the activities. Let's measure those activities. Let's understand where quality is being impacted. Let's understand where it's taking too long. And so I've done this many times with folks who are brought in VP engineering roles, CTO roles, sometimes CISO roles, and they've got to understand, what is the process of software development and delivery, so that they can optimize it, so that they can make improvements.
Sure.
So that's been really valuable. And oftentimes, what sticks out to me in my mind is that I run these value stream mapping workshops, and people always say things like, "This is the first time we've ever been in the same room." And these people work together all the time, right? They depend on each other. They're all involved. And it really drives incredible conversations because they've never actually stepped back to look at how everything comes together.
Yeah.
And so a mapping exercise really drives these productive conversations. Sometimes we get into challenging subjects like, why are we even doing this thing? That takes so long, or what if we could do this in parallel, or what if somebody else did this and we just leveraged it as a customer. There's all kinds of things that are really driving like big innovations, big changes that ultimately have like huge effects. And the stat that I always throw around is when you map a current state value stream, you immediately see a 20% improvement in lead time.
Right.
So that's in a 5-day process, you're cutting off an entire day. And that's just because we don't do that measurement. We get carried away with doing the work and being entrenched in the work, and we don't step back and measure, what's going on and where could we improve.
Sure.
So unless you're doing this on a regular basis, you're probably going to find that you can make massive improvements with a very small investment of time. And this is usually for mapping, it's like 2 to 3 hours is what I spend with a team to map a value stream. And if the opportunity is to save a day a week, that's pretty remarkable.
Sure. Yeah. And I think, that sort of immediate visible result, visible as in from the mapping that you're doing, but also visible as in the 20% that you're going to be, potentially saving in a very short amount of time. I think it's probably the thing that I see always is kind of to go back to your analogy about the tree, is that actually customers are sawing the branch that they're sitting on, which is not a good idea, right? So, but that kind of, I think, it's that sort of immediate visible returns is really important, because you could go on a lot of these kind of trips about, doing various exercises to kind of, figure out, efficiency and things like that. Or as you said earlier, a lot of the existing processes have been kind of bolted onto. There's been other bits that have been added to them over time, and it's got really cumbersome. So mapping it first, kind of getting that visual, but then sort of, finding some immediate areas where you can save and produce that 20%, I think is fantastic.
Yeah, and I think that that's just a starting point. But what evolves out of that is this value stream management activity, and that's really where you see a lot of benefit as, let's say, a large organization.
Yeah.
Because it can be challenging to map every team in the organization, and companies are going to hire me to go through every single of their 500 teams, right? Nobody wants to spend that time and that money. But what you can do is tackle that challenge of visibility and measurement by spinning up a value stream management tool. So this is where management tooling becomes really beneficial, because all of a sudden you can plug all of your teams into the same platform and start to see how they perform across your entire portfolio. And you can start to see, okay, well, everybody struggles with automated testing, for instance. So I've seen this in many, many clients where automated testing is a real challenge. And it's very difficult to quantify the impact of that without something like value stream management, right? It's difficult to see how much time is being spent, where the friction is, where the dependencies are. And it's difficult to form a strategy to address that without understanding how it's affecting all of the teams across the portfolio.
Sure.
And even realizing that this is a chronic problem that affects every one of your teams. Having some data to support that goes a long way. If I'm a VP engineering And the organization leadership is pointing to me and saying, you have to go twice as fast. We need releases more often. You're going to have to figure out how to make it happen. And you look at, let's say your testing process takes 4 days, but by mapping the value stream, you understand, okay, well, what they're really trying to do should only take 2 days. If they had proper tooling, if they maybe had a couple of resources, maybe we just build them a playbook that helps them solve some problems more effectively. Even that minimal effort can have a major impact, especially when you're starting to look at every team in the portfolio having a similar challenge. Now you're multiplying the impact by 100, 200, 300 teams. And so all of a sudden you can start to see, okay, well, if this is going to chop 2 days off of 300 teams for every bi-weekly release, you start to realize that might be $1 million problem. That might be a $10 million problem. Or you could look at it as a $10 million opportunity, right? So by standing up some software that's going to automate that, and by the way, allow you to measure and find the next opportunity and the next in an automated way, you start to see the value of something like value stream management platforms and that visibility across an entire portfolio of an organization. And I've seen many organizations go from, everybody is trying to get money and budget and time to do things, but they all have to argue and they all have to come to consensus and they all have to figure out, like, how do I get what I want? And, you get what you want. With something like value stream management that shows you, here's the actual data that tells you what's happening here and what's potentially could be happening if you were to add some automation or streamline the process or run these things in parallel, pull this capability out to a platform team. There's all kinds of things you could do, but the data is critical to making that case and really allowing people to have higher quality conversations about what should we do, where should we be focusing our energy, and what can we expect to happen when we do make an effort in a specific area.
Sure, excellent. So yeah, just kind of briefly, another example of sort of customer scenario where VSM's kind of helped as well.
Yeah, well, one of the earliest ones that I think had a massive impact, and if folks have heard any of my other podcasts, they might have heard this story because I love it so much, and I'm very proud of it actually. So I talk about it a lot, but it's kind of a prototypical case where I was brought into a large Fortune 100 company, about 100,000 people in this company, so big budgets. I was brought in by someone who was new to the role of VP engineering, and they were tasked with accelerating software development. So they had to speed up releases. And what they imagined was going to do that was deployment automation, building out deployment orchestration and something that's going to get the code out to the cloud in an automated way. And what they wanted from a value stream map was to put some data behind that hypothesis so that they could bring it to the board and ask for money to invest in it. And by mapping the value stream, what we actually discovered was they had 3 opportunities in the value stream that were actually 10 times, 20 times, and 100 times more impactful on the flow in the value stream. So in other words, the constraints were not in deployment. They were actually in things like environment provisioning, automated testing, and then upfront planning, like the planning process, just deciding what to do and how to scope things and gathering requirements was taking so long that the deployment automation piece was completely insignificant. And it actually, if they spent all the time and all the money to automate deployments, they would see a minor impact on the lead time, right? They would go slightly faster. But by refocusing on what the value stream map told us, they were able to cut their release time by a massive percentage. Like this was, I think, 60% reduction with just a few targeted improvements. And so what they were asking for was $20 million to go tackle deployment automation. We found opportunities that required a fraction of that investment that would actually have a, let's say, an order of magnitude more impact on the velocity of the value stream. And they were able to not only save the time that they would have spent in the wrong direction, but they saved that money. They also built the trust in the board of saying, here's an opportunity that's backed by data that we've measured, that you can see with an artifact that represents, a visual representation of what's actually happening. So instead of asking for something that the board probably didn't really understand, they could actually see this is something that we can point to and have a visual reference of what we expect to happen. And that, I think, that builds a lot of trust. It also made sure that everybody who looked at that map, looked at the visual representation, understood, here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing it, here's what we expect, and here's the big payoff.
Brilliant. Excellent. Well, Steve, yeah, unfortunately, we've kind of run out of time, but I really appreciate you kind of taking us through, those examples, and how kind of VSM can really be, successful when it's kind of implemented properly and kind of looked at, and having somebody as an expert like yourself kind of, running through it with them as well. So, we'll provide more details on Steve and kind of, value stream management in general in the description of the video. Yes, it only leaves me to thank you, Steve, for your time. It's been really interesting doing these talks with you, and hopefully I'll catch you again soon.
Thanks a lot. It was my pleasure. Thanks for watching this talk. If you enjoyed the content, please subscribe and support the channel. See you next time.